Right, back stateside, a look at Wall Street yesterday. It was a big day. The Dow Jones, NASDAQ, S&P all rallying, ending Tuesday with significant gains on hopes of a U.S.-Iran Strait of Hormuz deal.
Yeah, the U.S. says that the strait is, quote, free and open now, signaling a deal that could be coming this week with Iran. So let's talk about that.
Let's wait and see if it happens. Pau Auslander is the president of SeaBridge Private Wealth, and Brittany Madney, senior fellow of fiscal policy at the National Taxpayers Union. Thanks for coming on today. Okay, Paul, a deal with Iran could be close. Apparently, this is what we keep hearing, right? And oil prices like that news. They like that optimism. Prices at the pump slowly coming down again. Here's what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had to say.
President Trump last week threatened what would have been one of the largest military campaigns, or the largest military campaign since World War II, against the Iranians. And now we are, because of that, we are in talks with the Iranians.
Yeah, so a little bit of pressure, by the way, for Iran to come to the table. Although if you ask the Iranians, sometimes they say, we aren't even talking to the U.S. So it's hard to figure out exactly where things stand. Paul, what are you watching for, though, with the markets when it comes to this ongoing war in Iran?
Well, every time there's that announcement from the White House, or in this case from the Treasury Secretary, it's positive for the markets. It's positive for oil prices. So I'm hopeful. The Iranians have proved stubborn on this issue, and they seem to condition opening the strait with also having fees for the passage, which our president has clearly indicated is a non-starter. So I'm very hopeful. But like you said at the beginning of the segment, it's hopeful that this will happen. But we've had a couple of false flags before. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The markets are encouraged by this. But I think one of the reasons the markets react so strongly on the positive side is that the economy is basically good, and the stock market's reflecting that. These companies are incredibly profitable. Their earnings have been off the charts. So regardless of world events, and they will, in fact, impact things if matters turn ugly. But regardless of world events, one of the reasons the markets are doing well is because the companies are doing so well and the economy is that strong. I wouldn't say that as much for the bond market. I worry a little bit about the bond market. That's an interest rate discussion. But from this opening of the strait, that's something that's been positive.
Yeah, it certainly does have an impact whenever President Trump says something like that the strait's open, that we're getting close to a deal. We see the stock market up and down with all of that. The White House and the Pentagon on the defense side of things, though, they're insisting that U.S. forces, they have enough munitions, although we do know that Secretary of War Seth, as well as President Trump, General Kane, they're looking for more money here for this war. How much do you think that's going to play a factor, though, Brittany, if we do get this deal? Do we go right back and try to build more weaponry? I mean, and how much of an impact will that have on our economy?
Listen, it's important that we have the opportunity to defend ourselves and advance America's interests at home and abroad. That means making sure that we have a reliable stockpile, but it also means making sure we have a reliable economy. So those two things really do have to go hand in hand, which obviously means it's not just what's going on with the president and his deals with Iran, which I think it's important for us to remain hopeful but skeptical of how Iran is going to behave, and what the Secretary of War says he needs in terms of his munitions piles. It's also about what Congress has to say and how Congress is going to approach those requests for additional funds. At the same time, Congress has to make sure that they're not overrunning the economy by boosting our national debt to unsustainable levels. So any new funds for those higher levels of munitions do need to be offset elsewhere.
I know. I always say this. It's like, look at the credit card bill. Make sure that you've got enough money in the account to cover the expenses before you swipe the card again. It's tough, though, for some of our congressional leaders who like to spend.
They like
I know.
to dole it out.
Let's talk about SpaceX, though, with you, Paul. We saw shares plunge, and that's credited to essentially some AI spending increases, apparently rattling investors, throwing some shade on an otherwise expectation-beating quarter, closing above 125 yesterday, but it's below the 135 IPO price. So what's going on here with SpaceX?
I think you summarized it well. You know, the markets are a little worried about any of these companies, SpaceX being the latest, of companies that are spending incredible amounts of money to prepare for this AI revolution. I think it's loath to bet against Elon Musk. This has taken the trajectory very much similar to what happens when companies go public. They tend to be priced at a level, they shoot up, and then they settle back to earth. Pardon the pun. In this case, it's settled below earth. This is going to happen for a little while. We have a few additional challenges with SpaceX. The lockup for insiders being able to sell is coming up pretty soon, where they'll be able to unload some of their shares, and more shares will become available to the public. I think after that, you're going to start to see a slow and steady rise in SpaceX. There's some talk of Musk combining Tesla with SpaceX. We don't know if that's going to happen for certain, but I think there's a bigger plan here. I look at Elon as our modern day version of Thomas Edison, so I wouldn't bet against him. It's just going to take a while for people to realize the wealth in the company that they hoped would yield for them.
Yeah, Brittany, we'll give you a final word. What are you watching on that front with SpaceX and Elon Musk?
I'm watching the same thing everywhere, whether it's SpaceX and Elon Musk, the Strait of Hormuz, or any other number of issues you could ask me about. What is the impact on the federal budget right now? We're $39 trillion in debt. Is there going to be involvement on the taxpayer side of things? And if there is it in the interest of taxpayers? Are we paying that credit card balance like you mentioned earlier? And if not, how do we get into a better position?
Yeah, exactly. And we know advancements in technology can be pretty expensive. We have seen those investments take place with AI, which is interesting now because that seems to be the direction things are going. Although some Democrats want to put a pause on those data centers, which we're going to talk about with our next guest. Paul and Brittany, thank you very much. We do appreciate it.
Thank you both.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.